Yes, bro. I was a gifted and talented child in a magnet program. I was able to put the shapes in the right holes and point at the right colors, man. I was part of the chosen, the brilliant, those who were going to change the world. Yeah, we were busting out Beethoven and going God mode on finger painting. No, but seriously, I went to a gifted and talented program. I took honors classes. I took collegiate level courses in high school, and it really, utterly warped my perspective on life in a negative way. Okay, let me be clear here, though. These programs, by and large, work. Most of the children in my class went to Stanford, Berkeley, and med school. Some went on to be deeply successful in their field, like my sixth grade girlfriend for 6 days, Eliza Peterson. Good job over there. The majority of children who attend these Excel programs, by and large, they find themselves in high level, high status, or established roles in the world around us. However, evidently, there's people like me, people who are rocking the dunce caps of the world, who blew off the high hopes of being the next Obama, people who, despite showing promise at a young age, failed to capture our potential in a manner widely regarded as successful. How do we cope with this? Or is it even a problem? What do we make of such an issue? Well, let's rewind a bit. A story that, if you fit into this category, you can relate to. I'm in preschool, like 4 or 5. I sit down for examinations. My mother and my teacher are just glaring at me as I put forth some papers about some dumbass rabbit hopping over a dumbass log. I read it out loud and I don't think anything of it. My teacher turns to my mother and says, "Your child is at a much higher level with reading than his cohort." I think nothing of it. Elementary school starts. I made some friends, kind of befriended this kid named Coleman who's got cute girls running rampant for his attention. Nobody chasing my bowl-cutted chopped ass down for some smooches, but life goes on. It's really just focused on Pokemon and smiles at that point. And I'm 10, and another exam happens. This time, shapes. Which shape follows the next shape in a pattern? I don't know, probably this one and this one and this one. It's not too hard. And at the end of the year, I get a notice from my teacher that I'm separating from the others. Coleman and I aren't buddies anymore. I have to be redirected to another class, this time filled with weirdos just like me. Now, I give this preamble to emphasize that we're ostracized at youth and have to separate from others for better or worse. We're slammed into another advanced class before we really had the capacity to learn more. And we're not only told that we're different, but we're forced to be observed differently. And middle school and high school happens, so although we're supposed to be the leaders of the next world, the popular kids, the funniest kids, the most attractive kids are almost universally not the smartest kids. I don't want to reiterate the nerd trope of high school, but it's really worth mentioning how valued all these other kids were for their charisma, for their talents, and for their interesting personas. Turns out even being smart doesn't frequently correlate with risen the hose, bro, but ironically, although we were supposed to be better than all these kids, we were bullied a tremendous amount too by the non-gifted kids, the brutes, the tough ones, the bullies. These were often the kids that weren't the brightest. But finally, the cursed wall hit me, man. I finally became overwhelmed. I was being asked to ace my exams for AP classes, chemistry, calculus, to be on the high school swim team, to have my girlfriend explore romance and relationships, to be a part of the world, to become a man with no clear objective in sight. I blew it all up. I ditched my classes. I smoked a lot of pot, and I gave up on any and all expectations set on me. I spent the next few years collecting myself and figuring out what the hell to do. And after some trial and error, I came up with some observations about the problems of gifted kids, including myself. Your sense of worth has become poisoned by tying it to academic performance and seeking rewards within this realm rather than any effort given on your part. So now you're only judged positively if you do well in school. And obviously this results in cheating, neuroticism regarding intellectual competition, depression about your grades, etc. On this theme, I didn't work hard to be there, but despite it, I still felt shame for not doing well. Doing well in school was fine until I actually had to try and the stakes were pumped up. In a sense, trying to apply for colleges, which was honestly at the start of the collegiate level. So much of my worth as a child was subconsciously tied to being smart. But I wasn't really all that smart anyways. I just had some predisposed intelligence. When you're a gifted child, you learn to never try because you should just get it. And it creates a conflict in your head that if you don't, quote unquote, get something immediately and quickly, you're not what you think you are, which is smart. You were told you were smart, bro. It's not clocking to you. You're not standing on the intellectual business. And when you're conditioned like this at a young age, it scars you because you no longer want to try if you meet a struggle. That's what happened to me. As soon as I reached the collegiate level, I noticed I actually had to put in effort to learn things, to memorize things, to capitalize off of my intelligence. But since this was a novel experience and my entire life had been a breeze academically, I didn't know how to handle it. It was easier not to try. Because if you try and you do poorly or you fail, that means that you're not actually that gifted, right? Because a gifted child should be able to pass through this class easily. And you're getting a C+ in physics on your exam, even though you studied. All the other gifted kids pass with an A. They're scoffing about how trivial it really was. So if you get the F in the class and you never go to it and you never apply yourself, you can smugly tell yourself that you didn't try. And you can live in the illusion that if you actually tried, you totally would have destroyed it, bro. You just didn't try because you didn't want to. But that's one of the worst mentalities to have in life. Because if you were somewhere in the middle, intellectually speaking, but your parents instill you this idea of pushing when it's hard, when they congratulate you on the effort that you put in rather than how big your brain is, that's all that should matter to you. A good portion of these children who actually become doctors or lawyers or change the world have incredible backgrounds. They come from rich, supportive families. Their parents aren't often junkies or a struggling mom in my case, and they have money. This isn't an excuse for my lack of performance either. I do actually think there's people way smarter than me who never had to struggle with this conflict of validation, who don't battle the sufferings of having a few screws loose in their head. And this is often due to having a loving and supportive and wonderful background. And additionally, this might make other kids who aren't in these programs look poorly. In actuality, I know lawyers, doctors, and dentists who weren't in these excelled programs, and they flourish in the real world with work ethic, patience, and obviously a bit of intelligence. Why is this the case? Well, oftentimes, the case of nurturing backgrounds, rich families, and instilling correct values into a child overwrites whatever intelligence that they're predisposed to. But hey, that wasn't the case for me. This dilemma has basically plagued my entire young adult life. I quit jobs as soon as they ever became difficult. I failed out of college because they pushed me too hard. I had to relearn how to do hard things because I had never seen any potential through. I wanted to be a smug bastard who refused to try because that would make me look better. So how did I fix this? Well, you got to kill the perfectionist in you. In fact, kill the whole identity of burnt out, gifted kid inside you. This is not an easy task to you because, again, you've been so ingrained to believe you're God's greatest little child. You're pushing P. You're the Super Saiyan in the brain department and IQ too high, brother. But the reality is you get mogged intellectually. Yeah, you actually will never be the best at anything. And that's totally fine. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that you know the most capital cities in the world, or that you can identify the Zimbabwean flag, or whatever niche knowledge that you take refuge in knowing. A prodigy like Magnus Carlsen will enter your field and destroy you with ease at like 6 years old while you're trying your best at 25. You're still loved and valuable. We're not going to start a eugenics program and throw you in the woodcutter because a 6-year-old beat you in chess. Because here's the thing. If you don't actually become useful and put an effort into becoming someone, you will become no one. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past. It doesn't matter what your circumstances were. Anything worthwhile in life is often moved by effort, regardless of what's dragging you down, or pushing it forward. The one constant is effort. Obviously, that's easier said than done, right? Just forsaking your previous experiences and forgetting them is practically impossible. Change happens over time. If that means that going to therapy, you got to go to therapy, you got to completely rewire how you're living, you got to journal every day, whatever it may be. That's probably how it gets done. But I do have the solution so that you don't need to lie to yourself and that you can prove to yourself time and time again that you can reinvent and detract this malignant mentality you have in your head. You need to find something that you can do consistently, make mistakes in, and not hate yourself, and produce frequently that isn't too small or too big in scope, and just do it over and over and over again. There you go. Yeah, you're going to suck. You're going to be trash bino. You're going to dislike yourself and the work that you do. But if you don't do this, you're not going to change. Too many people I know who were part of this cultish attachment to intellectualism fall flat on their face because they produce nothing because they're frightened at the consequences of actually having to prove themselves. Just like me with the physics class, right? The lights were too bright. We got to dim those puppies down till nobody can see you so you can practice without all these external pressures. Well, what are some examples of activities you can engage in to facilitate this change? For me, it was coding because it was a bit less opinionated. As in, there's only so many ways to write good and bad code, though I do find ways to do it badly, believe me. I could make small projects and I could push them out to the world, and they sucked and I still suck. But guess what? It helped me cultivate this understanding about myself. And I bring up software development because there's this idea in software development that we call the MVP, the minimum viable product. What's the least you could do and be happy with? Honestly, that's kind of my philosophy in life. I rarely try my hardest. I instead find what I can try the least with and still be happy with. And it works, right? It still works. And maybe to some people, the work that I do is even great. This doesn't mean to never have a standard for yourself or to never try, but find something that feels effortless for you to put time into, that pushes you just a little bit and lets you have a finished product. Ask yourself about the things that you do or you could do. What's something you could do and be proud of and make maybe 10 variations of it. There's definitely different personalities. Okay. There's people who dream of grandiose projects that change the way that we view a particular form of art or culture or science. But bro, we need to get your ass back in the kitchen and cooking. Your ass got to perfect some scrambled eggs before we start tackling croque madame, right? So maybe cooking's a start. Maybe you should start cooking every day. And we all know that you don't need to make a roux-based, majestic, French Michelin star-plated beauty to make a good dish, man. You just got to follow a recipe. Or write. And Lord forbid, do not write a novel, please, man. If you do, at least do it by chapters. Write some short stories. Hell, write some recollections about life. If whatever you're thinking about doing, you can't just do without a ton of resistance, it's probably too big in scale. Either that or it's the wrong thing. Again, that's fine. No one cares. You just need something to toss around, throw away, play with, find moments of beauty to later find out that it sucks, trudge through the mundanity to finally eclipse a draft of a workable product, just something. No one's going to care if you write 2 sentences in a book today, but there never is going to be an opportunity that's giga perfect. You're going to just have to do something consistently to learn that it's possible to make progress. Again, small, actionable steps that you can do without much effort that makes you proud of what you did. Emphasis on the small. We don't pop into the gym and do a 900-pound squat. We start by doing lat flies and feeling sore the next day. Force yourself out of these dream bubbles where you live like a mighty king without moving an inch towards a single goal. Because again, nobody cares if you toil away. Nobody cares if you were highly esteemed when you were 10. In fact, nobody even cares if you're a doctor or a lawyer right now, to be honest. You need to make use of the time that you have now. You keep looking at the past, rip it apart, find out how to do that. Rip the expectations of your past self to shreds, metamorphize into some kind of form that nobody would have thought of, and ride through the boring years of doing the small things to become great.